Thank you very much, and thank you for the invitation to be here today and being able to tell something about the. Is it okay with the? Okay. About how we in McKean has approached the system engineering in the business of converting plastic into oil waste plastic. We have put on an agenda that will first of all present McKean Energy, and then I will tell something about why we have chosen to look in the direction of system engineering. And then Bitten will tell something about how we then progressed on that journey. And at the end, Mikael will tell us something about how we have worked with the system architecture and involving the teams in that as well. But yeah, now I've mentioned the names of the three of us presenting today. I'm Jens Christian, and I'm head of global project engineering, as we call it in McKean. That means all type of activities engineering related in any projects. I'm responsible for ensuring a common global approach to doing that in McKean. And then we have Bitten, who supports in building the business processes for both our project and our engineering department, right now focused on the Envirotech part. And Mikael is our senior system architect. A little bit about McKean first of all, because McKean, the name itself might not be that known to many of you, but it's at least for those from Aarhus, the former Kosan Kris plant. So our core business is filling bottles of gas, LPG bottles. And that is within the gas solution part, where we are also having a minor part around cryogenic, so liquefying of gas as well, either for bunkering for ships or for fueling trucks or whatever could be in this regard. Then we have a part called gas equipment, where we have simply a one-stop shop for all kinds of gas-related equipment or components for the entire world. And then the big part for us here today is the Envirotech division. That's the newest one in McKean. It's where we are focusing on new technologies within sustainability, and so because the owners of McKean are interested in also having a more focused and investment into this part as well. The biggest part there right now is the Plastcon project, which we'll tell more about today. And then we also have shown made a proof of concept that we are able to also decommission windmill blades in terms of getting the raw fibers of glass and the resin and oil out of this. It's a proof of concept, but no full-scale thing there yet. We are located in the southern part of Randers, next to the highway. So let's say the windmill, to some, the former Vestas buildings there in the southern part of Randers, that's where we are located. So that was in general. We are in total 4,000 people in McKean worldwide. 3,500 of those are our facility management part, which means that we operate customers' LPG filling plants. So that means every time we take over a new one, we get another 250 employees. So that's why we are this many people, most of them in the Far East. Yes, the technology, the company that we are going to talk about today is the Plastcon project. This is a picture of the plant that we have built on the port of Randers. It's a full-scale plant, ability to convert around 50 tons of waste plastic per day into what we call pyrolysis oil. We are building and commissioning on the plant right now, and then the preparation for the future is why we are also involving the system engineering part in this going forward. In principle, it's very simple. We have some waste plastic. We run it through a shredder. We sort it so that we remove whatever is there, metal, steel, paper, some tertiary plastics that we do not want in the process itself. Then we make it into a paste in our densifier, and we have a pyrolysis process where all the magic happens, the chemical reactions and the shortening of all the carbon chains. That leads into a gasification of the oil, and then we condense it back into the oil types that we are aiming at here, meaning that we will get around 75% of the input of plastic will get out as oil that can be reused for new types of plastic. There's a amount of non-condensable gas that we burn for district heating, and then there's some, let's say, solid residues, so whatever, ketchup or blood or stone, sand, whatever could be still left in the plastic when it gets into the pyrolysis process. Those are the three streams that comes out of such a pyrolysis plant like we are building. So in general, it's fairly simple, and the picture here, the video here, shows us how it looks at the harbor of Randers. 3.5 years ago, there were just a plain field like the one next to this building. There was almost just a blank sheet of paper. No designs of anything were at that point designed yet or fully invented. We had a small test plant at our headquarters where we were testing how to actually make this pyrolysis plant work. But building this also learned us that there are many technologies involved. There are a lot of systems that has to work together, scopes, requirements, interfaces, not at all. And then that has been a challenge and some sort of inefficient approach. We do also recognize that it's a development project, so changes will occur, but your ability to then handle those changes is still something to be effective around. And we could see that, and we wanted to improve both our way to manage the requirements and also to manage the changes that would come. So the question from management was then, how can we effectively and efficiently integrate these complex systems and in an intelligent way make sure that these fulfills those promises and potentials that are in such a process. That was, from a management point of view, the question to the team. Then also from an employee point of view, we do bi-yearly employee surveys, and we got a very impressive, I would say, a rating in general. People are really keen on being a part of McKean and being a part of this project, but there were also some comments regarding communication, regarding organization, responsibilities, who is supposed to decide what, and how do we manage change, and so forth. It should also be mentioned that when the project started, there were around 4 or 5 McKeaners involved, and then after approximately a year, there were still these 5 to 6 then McKeaners, and then there were approximately 20 to 25 consultants, and a project that was still to be developed, and changes occurred and so on. So it was rather challenging. Now we are, after 2 years since I started, we are now approximately 25 to 30 people in the engineering department, plus 14 in India. So we have grown on our own, and we have let go of a lot of the consultants, but still the same complexity remains. So, as you could see, both employees and management were interested in solving this. It was not just something that should happen from above because we wanted to let a number of engineers go by being more efficient. Basically, everybody was requesting the same needs. So again, the first one is on Randers, but we want to sell a lot of these equipment, and therefore being able to replicate was extremely important to us going forward. Quality control and requirements is something that we should find a solution to. System ownership, roles and responsibilities, and also a way to be able to refer to different things across disciplines, not just that piping likes to follow a ISA standard or something, but also that we have the same reference into our electrical systems and so forth. The system integration, our ability to actually know which system works with what, and when we do have to change something over here, what does it impact in other areas? That was a bit of a blur before that. And then leading to the communication and the teamwork with those things. And then lastly, of course, we have a project model already in McKean, and we were supposed to also being able to follow that. So we shouldn't create something that was suddenly East and the project model was in West. And there we found the possibilities in the system engineering approach, the standard from there. And that led to some kind of a journey, I think, longer or shorter, depending on patience. But Bitten will tell us about this, how we moved forward with the system engineering.
Yeah, so how did systems engineering end up at McKean's front door? It started actually a couple of years ago. A new employee started in McKean, and he had in his previous work worked with this reference model 81346. And seeing the complexity of the Plascon Randers site and our current or the existing tagging system, he recommended to switch to the 81346 model. At this point in time, Jens Christian and Henrik Walslev from Systems Engineering AS also had their first touch base, because that was also a reference, I think, from the former, from this employee that started there. Then summer last year, I joined McKean too, and having worked for Vestas for quite some years, I also had experience in working with systems engineering disciplines. And as my job function is to develop and improve current or new business processes within both projects, project management and engineering, I also saw I would say, it would be beneficial if we could lean upon an existing known framework. So I made the same recommendations out of sync of this other guy because I didn't know him at that point in time. We started off also looking to other companies who already worked with systems engineering and took some references facilitated by Henrik, even though the guys I contacted didn't know that I would contact them. So it was not, I would say, colored their input, but we asked them how did they actually work with systems engineering and what benefits and pros and cons did they see with this framework. So Semco Maritime, I talked to a guy there, and Green Hydrogen System, and also from Neil, nowadays called Cavendish Hydrogen, all with good feedback, which also, I would say, speeded up this about, yeah, we want the same thing, we want to work with this. Beyond being head of project engineering in Envirotech, Jens Christian also has responsibility that goes across the entire McKean group, standardizing how we work with project engineering across group. So it also was very natural that we reached out to our COO and our CTO, discussing this about we would like to implement the systems engineering and the benefits we saw on this. And in the spring, Henrik was also invited to present some of the thoughts that come from this concept. And the dialogue was also both on executive level and again also in between us, we discussed how can we actually get it up and going. So in April, we approached executive management in McKean requesting for a budget allocation for implementing systems engineering. And luckily we signed the contract with Henrik in June, where we procured the system engineering concept. And you'll hear a bit more about that, what that actually is. We started planning, and then shortly after summer holiday, we actually kicked off. So from having a first thoughts to the execution, yeah, a couple of years passed, but good things take time, I think. And the kickoff was with both core team members. We had appointed some core team members from the engineering leads, a system architect, a CAD administrator, and so on. So I think 7 or 8 core team members. And then we also invited a representative from the entire value chain. So a stakeholder from each of them was invited to this kickoff, because we also wanted to create awareness across the entire group, even though it is only our business segment for now that will implement systems engineering. We wanted to create the awareness of the journey that we are setting out on. So systems engineering, as we see, supports our ways of working. And some of these grayed out topics are already mentioned by Jens Christian. So it's just to say that we recognize and see that it helps us control complexity. It helps us involve our value chain stakeholders and so on, this concept that we have brought. I would like to dwell on one particular thing. When we do project execution and we have engineering guys along as well, we see a kind of a missing link. Missing link, as us engineers, we talk about components, machines, functions, calculations, and so on. Whereas the execution, project execution team members, they're more into the plans, to the budget, to the time, to deliverables, and so on. So we saw a missing link between the two groups. And this concept and one language actually bridge those two teams. So we now have one language with the same perspective. And what that means for us, you will also see later on what it is that we are doing about that. And buying the concept and not trying to implement on our own. Let me say I've been 10 months at Alfa Laval Aalborg, where we also try to implement systems engineering. And during those 10 months, we didn't reach as far as we've done in 3 months. So buying a concept like this enables us to speed up implementation significantly, because you have manuals as for saying when to do what. We are having templates for documentation purposes, which types of documents to create, which kinds of workshops to facilitate, and so on, and also tools like the SecHub that you showed from Aarhus Vand. We too utilize that one as well. So that, with that on hand, it speeds up the implementation significantly. I think Michael will tell more about the architecture.
Yes. So as Bitten already mentioned, we created a core team consisting of a number of people, most importantly the leads or managers of our different engineering disciplines. So that is mechanical, process, electrical, automation, and piping. Our CAD administrator, myself, system architect, Jens Christian, the head of the development department, Bitten, and also the lead project manager. Why did we do that? Well, in order to have success when we implement a new way of working, we need to have buy-in. If people do not buy into the new way of working, it will fail. We're using these people directly, educating them in the new way of working as they went along, we thought was the best way of doing it. And it has also worked very well. I said that the leads and the managers are the most important people, and they are because they have to be ambassadors. They have to sell the idea to the other engineers that work for them. They also need to ensure quality, and they need to educate the engineers in the way of working. Otherwise, we'll fail. Regarding the functional breakdown, we had a number of requirements. Not all of them were clear to us when we started, I think. Obviously, the function of a system is very important. Another requirement is how do we want to source or procure the system? If we want to buy it in a functional tender as a separate system, it's best to separate it out as a main system, because then the interfaces will be more clear. I need the mic. So that was the second one. The third one is the whole product, the whole solution has to be CE marked. That can be done by sourcing systems that are CE marked individually and then making a compilation of that, so to speak. So therefore, CE marking concept was also very important.
Finally, this system that we wanted to break down into functions is not the one you saw in the video. The one in the video is the prototype in Randers. Our pilot project is our, I expect, second project, which will be in Fredericia, which will have twice the capacity. And but we wanted to keep the modularity of the product inside our system breakdown. And you can see that here, for instance. It's very hard to see. But if you go down the line, you can see there's one M1 called pyrolysis system, skid 1. A skid, that's the production line, like what Jens Christian showed before. And here, actually, there are 4 production lines. In Randers, there's only 2. So we want to be able to use the same overall structure with 2, 4, 6, 8, 10 production lines. So we wanted to prepare the system breakdown for that. Also, maybe in the future, there's no need for a pre-treatment system, the sorting system that Jens Christian talked about, because maybe we can buy pre-sorted feedstock. Then we can take that out with minimal re-engineering and so on. So modularity was also very important. So that's what we did, and we ended up with what you see here is 23 main systems. Actually, we do have 3 that are not shown, so we have 27. It's not a competition, I'm afraid. Also, you see, actually, we put a gray color on the one down here. That's because actually the building and the site is not our scope. That's our customer that will provide that. But still, we decided to put those systems into our architecture in order to be able to do interface management. So we have the systems, we can talk about them using the SecHub as our communication tool. I mentioned 23 or 27 main systems. We have 477 technical systems. Many of them are duplicates because, as I said, we have 4 skids. The skid itself has many levels of subsystems. So we end up with around 300 of those of the systems are duplicates of others. That makes it somewhat easier. But still, it is a highly complex system. Once we are done breaking everything down to component level, I expect we will have many thousands of components. And we need to go down there if we need to refer to the components. So right now we have done the functional breakdown. We have also done a location breakdown, similar to what was shown from Aarhus Vand, where the site has been broken into areas and they have been given the RDS codes as well. We have not yet made the link between the systems and the locations, but that will come. Tomorrow, we will start the interface dating, speed dating sessions. Harald and Philip will be on site in Randers. So we have not started that yet, but that will start tomorrow. Then we will continue developing the system using the system engineering concept, which is, I don't know if you're all aware of it, but it's a spiral model where you improve or mature the knowledge of all the systems by when you take one round in the spiral, you revisit what is the scope, what are the requirements. You do the interface management, and then you end up with a stakeholder workshop where you make sure that everything was correctly understood, that your stakeholders are ready. And that is done several times until the maturity of all the systems and documents are at what we call the level of information 7, which is done. So we expect 4 iterations because we do not start from scratch. We start from the prototype level. Yeah. That one already showed. So first impressions. Peter already said we started out in August. Now 3 months later, we have done the functional breakdown. We have assigned system owners. That being said, we do not have system engineers as such. it's the same people that were at McKean before that also now have a new role called system owner. So of course they had to be educated. They are currently working on making system descriptions where they state what are the requirements for our system. Next step is what are the interfaces. My impression is that this system-centered design, the clear ownership that it gives, is very much appreciated by the people working with it. The new system owners have received their new and additional role because they are also engineers at the same time. Very well, they're working with it. And currently, we also have to look into a change in the organization, in the way we work together, because we came from a traditional matrix organization where there are projects and disciplines, and now we have a new element called system engineering, and we need to fit that in. So now we have, in principle, not a matrix, but a 3D thing. We have project management, system management, and discipline management. And we need to find a way to get around that. One thing that is also much appreciated is that our requirement management has become much more visible. Before, it was unclear to most people, what are we actually designing? What do we need to fulfill? And now that we have, for each system, clear definitions of what the requirements are, I think it's much better for the engineers to do the development task. So.
So looking ahead, Henrik asked us, please also look ahead, just like Aarhus Vand did. Looking ahead, first of all, the vision of McKean is that now our business segment, Envirotech, is working with system engineering. So the lessons learned from us we will knowledge share with the rest of McKean. That's also one of our values in the company, knowledge sharing. And when we reach summer next year, the plan with Henrik ends, so far at least. And from there on, it's up to our colleagues in LPG and the cryo guys to assess whether this systems engineering framework is adoptable for them as well. So the vision is that it's not, how to say, an island. Envirotech is not going to be an island in McKean, but it will be a way of working in McKean. So it will be part of our DNA. That's one thing looking ahead. The other thing looking ahead is how far have we come? I would like to use this way of looking into it, just like the INCO's handbook divides the processes into 4 main processes. For now, what we have touched upon during this concept is that we have made the architecture, we have captured the requirements, we have anchored those requirements to the systems, and we are in the design definition process as well, working with system description documents and so on. We have also started reaching out to our group procurement guys, as we are in parallel actually, because we started that before we entered with the systems engineering concept. We're working on updating our requirement specification, because that's a vital part for doing a good procurement. And we talked to them as for how we could actually also anchor systems engineering approach into sourcing activities. Just like you mentioned, should it be a part of the tender? That's one thing. But also, how do we determine the maturity of a request for quotation? At what maturity level is the documentation that we forward to our procurement guys, and then they send that on to sub-suppliers? So we've started a test with one supplier and one system, the Polisher system, and see how that goes. Then looking ahead, during our design activities from now on, of course, we also need to take into consideration the verification and validation of our design activities. So one thing is to build the right product, and the other thing is to build the product right. So that's very important. We, as also mentioned by Mikael, we have our project management model, which is from PMI, and systems engineering goes hand in hand with that. We do, however, see some impact in a lesser or minor degree. So we are adjusting along the way as for deliverables coming into this project model. Decision management is also about responsibility matrix, and mentioned as before, we have existing roles and now are introducing new roles. So we need to adjust the way we do decision in Envirotech as well. Risk management, we work with presumptions during our system design, and those presumptions, some of them might be potentially risks. So we elevate these to the project manager in this pilot project that we are implementing in. And I think all of you have your eyes on information management. How do we document? How do we monitor the document that we need? How do we maintain it? How do we retain it? And if we are ISO 9001, we also need to version control our documents. And of course, this is a continuous improvement activity in McKean as well. Yeah, I could keep on speaking here, but some of these are work in progress and others are ahead of us. The last one, lifecycle model management, is also about predictability and that we can recreate what we did once. We want to do it again. We want to be replicable. In order to do that, we need to anchor the ways of working into somewhere, so it doesn't go when I go or Jens Christian go or somebody's hit by a bus. So we anchor it into our quality management system, where we have a business process portal, and there we describe what we do. We put our guidelines in, we put our templates in, and so on. So the information stays in the company, and that should be vital for all companies, that it doesn't stay with your employee, but it stays in the company. So we also need to look more into that. Yeah, and looking ahead, we are new in INCOS. Some of us are new in systems engineering as well, but being a member of this council or this society, we sure see potentials for both networking and knowledge sharing. I would really like to do so. So I'm happy to hear, or we are happy to hear, that Aarhus Vand is at the same point. That could be great to share also lessons learned, what to do and not. And we would actually like to raise a couple of topics that we would be very keen on addressing with some of you if you had the same interest. Some of the things that on top of my head that we work with right now could be interesting to see how you solve, because we are in the midst of embedding systems engineering into our enterprise IT landscape. So how do you actually, in daily operations, it's not just a thing on a shelf. It's the way we do. It's in our DNA, and some of our DNA is the system support in our activities. We don't use a piece of paper and a pen anymore. It's in the systems. The other thing that we are working with is also the governance and the anchoring in these processes that we have today, our work procedures. How do we anchor systems engineering as well? Yeah. That being said, I think on behalf of McKean, I'd like to thank you that we were invited to this event and having the possibility of sharing our journey towards systems engineering in the McKean Group. Thank you.
Any questions?
From the last question.
Jeg kom til at trykke på den. Nu blinker der.
As long as you can hear me here, yeah. So we do the same as before. We have some questions from the audience here. If you could please repeat the question in the microphone so our audience can hear as well, then I'll take care of the remote. So, but we start in here, and there's a question over here.
On the plant, the question is if we already use the reference designations on the existing plant. No, we don't. On Plascon Randers, we have an existing McKean tagging system that we use, and it is an active decision that it will stay like that, and then it's on the projects coming that we will use a new reference model. That being said, we have a representative from the site, and also from in McKean it's called customer support, but it's the service and the operation team. They are included as stakeholders. So all that we do We transfer our knowledge to them, and whatever they would like to bring on, they do. So example giving tools and machinery and special equipment out on the Randers site, they actually introduce tagging the way we do, or the referencing designations as we do.
I would like to add one comment to that. In Randers, we have a tagging system for the process part. And then we have a different tagging system for electrical part. So we're not using the same system. And that is causing confusion. But it's also a challenge when we want to make a change and we want to go to a common system, a common language, that someone needs to change. So actually they're both changing into something new. And that's why we needed the core team, because there's no, it's not up for debate. It's something we have decided to do, and therefore they have to follow along. So getting the buy-in is extremely important.
But we have done the location part for Randers as well, because there were no basically location of things, and 1.5 acre of equipment in 3 floors. Finding a pump or a valve if you didn't install it yourself, and so they are building on the location part of this, and then actually trying to refer to that when we look into where to find the components and make these kind of service tasks. Yeah, the question is which tools we have used for implementing systems engineering. We have gone full blown with system engineering concept from system engineering, based on the experience from Bitten being in a former position. The learning was that if we were to sit down and read the 81346 and I can't remember the other one, the other for system engineering, and then converting that into our way of working, that would be a huge and time-consuming task as well. So diving directly into something that was usable from the day one, not just based on what Henrik said, but based on references, was our approach to it, because otherwise we would never have gone that far, and we would have people sitting in a corporate office just building and building on this type, and then most probably come out after a year or two with something that didn't even fit. So that was our approach. Then, of course, mapping it to our IT infrastructure. We had a challenge with the new structuring thing using Plant 3D for the drawing of PNIDs and also for the 3D part. And there was a missing link there to actually being able to accommodate this structuring of systems. So we very quickly did a test with our IT CAD administrator, found a add-in tool for Plant, and we bought it right away for him to test for 3 months, and we validated and could see that it was a working thing that we could use. And then we made an investment request for that software, again trying to remove roadblocks as fast as possible. We're still struggling with the IT part, ERP system wise. We don't know exactly how to handle that part, but we have to solve that as well.
We have one remote question, but before we do that, a question from me actually. What we've seen when we have been so privileged to work with you is that I think that one of the things that have made a big impression on me personally is that you've done a lot of effort to actually involve people actually in the decisions and actually make sure that people understand what's going on, but it's not a thing you put on their hat, it's something you actually discuss quite intensively. For example, the stuff about having the systems owner role is something I know you put a lot of personal effort into it. Could you elaborate a little bit on that, please?
Yes. The general thing that this should not be something just spoken out by management was important. So the getting people to understand where we're coming from and where we're going to has been a big part of this in the beginning. Communicating in general what we were setting out to do, and then also in detail informing those who were first a part of the core team with the managers and some of the project members. And then afterwards, when we got to the next phase where we started to have the systems, we've been telling people about that it was coming and they could see how the structure and the systems breakdown was evolving. And then when we got to the actually being ready to appoint system owners, we had made our suggestion on who it should be, written some characteristics for a person being able to be a system owner, because you don't just take every engineer and then put into the system owner role, because it is partly a project manager approach. And then we did for each discipline with their manager, we had an information meeting telling about where we were, how we had progressed so far, and what would be the next task. Michael gave a good introduction to what is the expectation of a system owner, and then also then informing everyone, but then also taking specifically with each system owner if there were any doubts or concerns, but also clarifying that if this would cause them to have too much work, then we would have to highlight what is it then potentially that you shouldn't be doing. Then afterwards you will have to discuss that with your manager as well, so that it's not just a burden put on them, but that they are able to then evaluate what to come. Well, knowing that we didn't know everything that were to come, but at least that we open up for the dialogue around it's not just to add 140% on top of something, but then we need to see what else to remove potentially from your task, because we see you with the right skill sets for doing this.
Yes, thank you very much. It makes good sense. So also that's very nice to see it actually works. It's not just talk and we do it, but it actually works when we get there and people are happy about it and feel involved. And I think involvement is a key word here as well.
Yeah, and repetition.
Yeah, repetition and involvement.
Telling the why every time we start out with any kind of information. We maybe sometimes shorter and shorter, but still we just rephrase the why.
Yeah. Yes, please.
My take on that.
Recap the question.
Okay, recap. So it was a very long question. So the question was whether this separation of systems into our own systems and system we buy, whether that was completely deliberate, part of a strategy or not. My take on it would be that we are well aware of what our core business is. What we make is a system for making plastic into pyrolysis oil. So that's the pyrolysis process, including getting it out to the tank farm where it is picked up by tank trucks. We are not experts in making sorting systems for plastic. That's something we are not going to be experts in. We're going to buy it no matter what. And we could even easily see us making systems without it. And then there are some systems that are in between. For instance, utility systems, nitrogen supply systems, cooling water systems, and so on. And we are only 25, 30 people or so we cannot do everything ourselves. We need to source it from somewhere. And then if we chunk it up, so to speak, so that we buy CE marked solutions, it just makes our life a lot easier. So I don't know if that answers your question.
We also have the CE strategy that supports us, Alexander. So we actually, way back, I don't know, it's a long time ago that we defined our CE strategy. So that also helps us in this way of choosing whether or. Yeah.
But it is still our scope. It was only one gray box that was not our scope. All the green ones, McKean color, are our scope. So even though we buy the subsystems in a functional tender, we are still responsible of the integration, right? So we need to work with the suppliers, obviously, to bring the level of information up, making sure that all requirements are understood, the N2 diagrams are understood, and so on.
Yes, thank you very much. There is a question from the audience, just one. I think it's about the tagging. It says, finally, the tagging components, according to the RDS 81346 standard, will be need to go to the electrical and or hydraulic P&ID diagrams. How was the process from old tagging systems in Randers, I assume, to the new tag systems in those diagrams in tools like ePlane? I don't know if ePlane is too specific, but how did you manage the old versus the new?
Yeah, I think for the ePlane part, it's somewhat built according to this already, because 81346 is some sort of copy from the electrical part. I think we had a bigger issue in the piping, so the hydraulics or P&ID diagrams, as the plant from Autodesk was not fully, let's say, capable on its own to actually have this inheriting the let's say the mother or father of the system, or the parent, and then downwards, as we do for this type of of tagging. And that was how we then did it, by having this add-in tool. So again, as mentioned also by Henrik, the ability to actually copy something and put it somewhere else in the P&ID, as long as you take the entire block and put it somewhere else, it's automatically retagged to wherever it then belongs to now. And finding that software, and then by that also removing that barrier in terms of accepting new types of tagging, at least work-wise, fairly easy. Yes, there are still some who have to know that a QAB, QBA, or whatever, I can't remember now, is a liquid shut-off valve instead of previously maybe it was a hand valve. So we go from how you operate it to what it actually does. That's something to learn.
Yeah, so the question is more how to handle the old system in Randers versus the new one coming up.
Yeah, for the P&ID part, you create a new template. So you simply start working,
scratch. Yeah. Mapping table.
Phase in, phase out. We also have a phase in, phase out. So at some of our P&IDs, at least as I understand the team, they will have both for a period of time to get used to the new reference designations, because we are stuck in the old ones. Right? Yeah. We don't like change as people, as human beings. So we have an overlap period. Yeah.
Yes, thank you.
The other question up there, it says, what is the name of the add-in? And that was Plant Express tool from Auxilia. That's an add-in for Autodesk Plant 3D that we have found working pretty well, and also a lot of other functionalities in that part that we could use.
Yeah. Okay, I think there was one more question from Christian.
With the, let's say, the question was if we have another software for a common software for maintaining the whole RDS structure across disciplines. Yes. And that's where we said we bought in on the full package from System Engineering Concept, meaning that the SecHub that they have for building this structure is what we're using today. Then that's the question is then, yeah, how do we then extract it from there or get it into the various other systems? That's one of the next steps for us to clarify these roles of who has the mandate or the administrative rights to actually create new tags in this SecHub, so this common system, and then how do you then link from here to your other systems, ensuring that you don't have manual typos and so forth. That is one of the challenges. But we look at how to then, based on some kind of interface, that we have a database behind that where we are able to cross-check these things instead of just having this manual, because everything can be extracted again into another database, and then we will have to do some kind of matching. Yeah, but that is the challenge, and that is, yeah, there's no other where to go than this SecHub by now.
Yes, thank you. Any further questions in here? Was it clear? And Rachel, any farmers? It doesn't seem to be the case, and I also think from the chat there's no more there. But any last remarks from you?
Comment. It's just how to say, an experience done from Vestas. We were from Vestas when I was there. We were to exchange data with Statkraft in Norway on all service activities, and we actually exchanged information based on RDS 81346, because then you have, your key to the information you carry. So when we are, I don't know if I can use the word struggling, figuring out how we have for now, our master is the SecHub software carrying the RDS for now. But of course we need it in our design tools, the CAD environment. We also need it in our ERP, because that's where the guys go in and procure spare parts and so on. And this about exchanging of data, we have now made an overview of our information flow, again with the help of Harald from Systems Engineering. And then in my mind, it's all about API, right? So you carry your information from A to B with this API bus. But what is challenging is who and how and where and blah, blah, blah. Yeah. And budgets.
Yeah. Any famous last questions? Or thank you very much. I have had the privilege of seeing the plant in real life together with Harald. You showed us around. And it's, even though you see a film, standing in front of all that stupid plastic, all kinds of stupid plastic from gardenings to whatever, and standing in front of that, and then you turn around and then you have 2 silos with oils inside. What's not to like, except that it's fucking dangerous and stuff like that. But except from that, and you can actually get burned and it can explode. But I really like the idea. And it's going well, so all good luck with it, and we hope that we can support you in systems engineering so you can really scale it up, because I think we deserve that, all of us. So thank you very much for that. So yeah, so that was actually it. Thank you very much to you. Can we give them a more hand, please?